precious life streams so long dedicated to our holy cause, I come tonight in honor of the sacred memory of the Father's design for you individually, in order to amplify the flame of freedom that is resident within your own beating hearts, and is the most precious possession which you have, and which you ought to honor, love, and obey in the wonderful alchemical marriage of your own God identity to your own self. Mankind, sometimes shocked by conditions in the outer, remain in a perpetual state of shock, whereby they pass through an entire embodiment without ever awakening to the true reality of their being. Parents, observing their children and cognizing the fact that their children are under the hypnotic spell of the mass media of communication, frequently lament this fact and desire for their children entree into a realm of spiritual understanding. This is understandable and may be requested of the Holy Christ self of the individual, but the pressure of acceptance, dear hearts, is always on the part of the individual life stream, for in the holy name of freedom I wish to assert each individual's right, if they will, to kick against the pricks, or to walk upon the pathway that leads to immortality, to blessedness, and to infinite compassion and attunement. I would call to your attention tonight my gratitude on behalf of all of you who so graciously consented to the ordeal of passing before my image engraved in a rather crude sort of way by comparison to my actual image, and pay homage to that for which I stand. I am grateful for the great and beauteous image which I beheld within your hearts as a measure of devotion, and it is to this wondrous image that I pay the greatest tribute, to the image that you hold of me within your hearts, and I assure you that that which I hold within my heart of you is immaculately conceived and kissed with God's honor. I would like now then to call to your attention that on this commemorative event today, I wish to enhance the power of freedom for the planetary body, and to bring to those hearts who know the wisdom to dare, to do, to be silent when necessary, and to speak when necessary. For we need forthright men and women today, as we did in ages past, to carry the torch of freedom, and to carry it in the face of mankind's opposition to the holy light. I would like to call to your attention that there are more wondrous things both in heaven and in this blessed planetary body than are dreamed of by anyone in this room. And there is such a wonderful variety of experiences awaiting you that it is the delight of an eternity that will be required ere you shall discover but a portion of that wonderful, blessed intent of God which he holds for each of you. And God be praised, he holds also for the entire planet and its people. But unless they shall awaken and recognize that which is their own natural birthright, it shall be snatched from them, and they will not recognize it when it passes. someone has written a book concerning my embodiments, which is drawn part from reality and part from fiction, called A Stranger Past. Well, beloved hearts, it may as well be that I should be a stranger to mankind if they cannot accept the power of freedom and cannot accept the reality of my being. I think that I am very much alive, but some do not. I am grateful then for those of you who do, for you make it possible for me to find an organization through which to function, and people whom I can inspire and fire with the flame of freedom, kindling in their hearts a new and vibrant understanding of immortality and the power of the present moment. I ask you, ladies and gentlemen, what would it mean to you if this were your last moment? Well, it would mean very little, for it would be over as you snap your fingers and have evaporated from reality. You would have folded up and collapsed as a tent, and naught would concern you. But because of the fact that this is not the case, and you are here and I am here, it stands then to holy reason that together we must do our best for mankind, and not permit the tempest which some men have stirred up in a teapot and others have stirred up in the planetary body to dominate the scene of either politics or religion, so that mankind obtain their freedom in both elements. And I refer now to that despotic individual, Fidel Castro, who has dared to assert himself between the holy presence of life and mankind in this hemisphere. Ladies and gentlemen, the visitation of heaven has been directed, unfortunately, against those precious islands and the people there because of the inequities of that individual, who himself shall give account before the holy lords of Karma, and he shall stand quaking and shaking in his boots because he has dared to trifle with the lives of mankind that are far more holy and precious than he recognizes, or even deserves, for that matter, to recognize, because he has accepted the perfidious arguments of those nefarious activities of the shadow, which in no way communicate the divine ideal and the realities of heaven to the hearts of waiting men, but stifle the power of freedom's breath, and would bring it under the ruthless boot of communism and tyranny and despotism and fear, which must crumble away before the great and powerful light of Almighty God, and sweep away as the dams of human construction are erected. So they must be broken down by the holy power of the great spiritual flood, the rising tide of cosmic light and right, which will make all things right for America. But this will not happen unless dedicated hearts shall take heed to retain their wondrous liberties and the spirit of holy liberty. Little do men dream of all that is done behind the scene politically, while traitors and tyrants sell their country's honor for a mere trifle, a glass of wine, a temporal goblet, and the satiation of their own egos and physical forms with all of humanity's greed and lack of grace. Other men and women are continually dedicating themselves to the sacred fires of freedom, and these are they who are in one sense soldiers of the cross of light, and in another sense soldiers of the Maltese cross, which is my emblem. I am come then in the holy name of God to dedicate you all anew to the heart of freedom, that by a renewal of the ancient covenants there may be established a vibrant and brave new army of the elite who shall not hesitate daily to invoke on behalf of the oppressed the wondrous flame of God freedom that shall lift this planet into the arms of the Holy Mother, until by God's infinite compassion and grace the world can be free and the youth of America stand as they ought to stand, with an understanding of life and its vital purposes, not the glorification of their human ego by the filling of their pockets with an excess amount of money or fame, but a recognition of life as the doorway to vast opportunity, the realm of discovery, and the power of honoring those parents who gave them birth. Today, in many a heart of the youth of America, there is a vacancy of love for their parents and those who have poured out unceasing devotion to them. This is not always directly attributable to the individuals. Some of them, it is true, are very recalcitrant life streams, rebellious spirits from the past, released now to the screen of life, that they might redeem those worthless energies and exchange them for virtue. Others, however, have had a bad example set before them by their parents, and those who have sown the seed wind of bad example are now reaping the whirlwind of recalcitrant youth and disrespect. This is not God's plan, and is the lamentation of many hearts, as crime continues to rise throughout the nations of the world, and most specifically in the heart of this great land of the free. We have struck a blow, however, against those forces of crime, and are awakening mankind to an awareness of it. But we are most concerned that they understand the causes thereof, and make petition to the courts of heaven for the release of mankind from all sorts of distress, of whatever brand and variety they may be, until there is established here that virtue which deserves the power of that great God being, the goddess of liberty, that she may descend into the heart of America, planting her feet of cosmic virtue upon the soil of young virgin hearts, and elevating before their view her mighty torch of liberty, that mankind may understand life as it is meant to be understood, not as an opportunity to seize a greedy amount of the world's substance, but an opportunity to contribute to the worth of the world, which is not measured in dollars and cents, but more in divine sense. Do you see? Ladies and gentlemen, may I tell you now of when you sung to me this specific waltz. It reminded me of a very wondrous occurrence, which is frequently the entertainment of the ascended masters in our octave. Bear with me now, for I am about to change my pace in order to convey to your consciousness an infinite blessing from our ascended master octave. The anthem of the ages. Music, it is true, soothes the savage beast and brings the tempo of the march or the funeral dirges to the hearts of men, moving them through a sea of emotions from one extreme to the other. But we hold to a permanent tempo of joy, bliss, devotion, understanding, and wonder in our octave. I would call to your attention then that we have specific performances in connection with the birth of flowers and music. And the manner in which it is done, I shall slowly outline for you that you may understand it. As you are aware, there is a cycle to the life of a flower, so that first through the earth appears the little tip of the upshooting plant. It grows and becomes a stalk, branching out and fashioning the bud, and hence, in due time, the bloom. All of this requires the element of time, and eventually, from the first tender shoot emanated from the root, comes into full manifestation the bloom. Now let us make a change in this time element. Let us decide that all of the process can be done in a moment, so that in one moment the shoot comes up into full bloom, and all happens in a fraction of a second. Let us then imagine multicolored flowers in a garden capable of disappearing when once they have appeared. Now then, let us have a melody such as the Waltz of the Flowers, or other suitable melodies, and assign to each note on the scale some specific blossom, rare and color fair. Let us then imagine what would occur before the ascended Master's gaze when all of these flowers suddenly come into instantaneous being and then evaporate from the screen of life, only to be replaced by one of more glorious hue. This is at times our entertainment, and I pass it on to you because it is a delight to behold, and at times reminds us, when particularly ensouled by some of the more advanced elementals, of a ballet of the flower. You know, we are very happy in our octave, for God is a wonderful Father, and all that we behold here is more wondrous by far, than that which you behold here. And it is therefore by reason of this that I desire to amplify your courage, that you might not fear your own ascension into our octave, for it shall not be a bitter experience, but a sweet one, gained and obtained after the human struggle is ceased and the virtue of eternal victory is won. The vigil of mighty victory must be infused into your bones and consciousness. You must recognize that ascension's victory comes to the vigilant, and not to those who sleep, not to those who do not care, but to those who care enough, and call enough, and love enough, and believe enough, and hope enough, and are enough to be deserving enough, to obtain enough of that stuff of which our octave is made, that they might rise then on wings of light, victors in the fight, and know that I am free, and that as I am, so shall you forever be. I hope now that in this simple ditty, which I have repeated to you to brighten your hearts and entertain you, as it were, after a fashion, you shall recognize there is a more serious note, and that the world itself is in need of men and women like you, and in a greater quantity by far than fills this room or the largest auditoriums. I hope, therefore, and I say it again, that you shall recognize that you are our ambassadors. This is not for a human purpose. It is not for the mere expansion of the organization alone. It is for the holy purposes to which the organization is dedicated. And therefore, I am come this night in the holy name of freedom to consecrate your hearts anew, I say again, because again and again you must do just that, until your determination has become so vital, vibrant, and alive that you could not possibly sleep the sleep of the sleepers, but must ever be awake and partake of our glow ray, which is your glow ray, even as it is God's glow ray. The ray of your presence is anchored within your heart. But I would like to call to your attention that you have but one end of it, and that God has the other, and you cannot get away from that connection and still be a part of life. Do you see? And therefore the only way to obtain your freedom is to climb up that wondrous ladder of light and partake of that delight which is in our octave. However, some men have chosen to try to steal the kingdom of heaven by seeking to take a portion of the energy thereof, as the prodigal son did, commanding from his own God presence the energy which he required, and going down to abide among the swineherders. Mankind have done this far too long, and it is now time that they cast off the fetters and oppressions that have plagued their own world, and say, a plague on all your houses of iniquity. Let us now set out for our Father's house and keep on going until we get there. Do you see, beloved ones, there is only one way in which you can get there, and that is by keeping on, keeping on. You are not going to do it if you keep on turning around and saying, well, I wonder if this is the right way. You can keep wondering right on all the way through till you take the last breath of an embodiment, and you will be doing exactly that which the Master declared when he said, behold, ye despisers, and wonder and perish, for I work a work in your days, a work for the light. This is the work that mankind must recognize. They must recognize it by its own inherent virtues, and they cannot find it elsewhere, where individuals are dedicated to the expansion of their own ego and the manifestation of psychic phenomena, so that they may be able to reach into the purses of individuals and extract from them the last farthing. It must come as a result of the light expanding from within the hearts of men, and an absolute abject sincerity. And I say this because you may say to me, well, St. Germain, why is sincerity abject? It is not the sincerity, dear hearts, that is abject. It is the individual who becomes abject enough, humble enough, and complacent enough to God to acknowledge the supremacy of his wisdom over their own, and in so doing recognize that if God has the wisdom, he must also have the means to convey it. And this, of course, never becomes a question in a suckling child, who always is willing to take the food on the spoon that is conveyed to him until he reaches that prankish stage where he decides that he has had enough for a time, and so he pushes the hand away and spills the food upon the floor. Now, some individuals today are like that, and yet they call themselves adults. I do not think so. I think that they are acting the part of a petulant child. Now, I am not saying this, directing it at any individual in this room, but I am saying it for the record, that mankind who read it may recognize the picture of themselves at various stages in their development, and will then say to themselves, I shall not return to that state, but I shall move forward, never again going back to it. You must recognize the truth when you hear it, blessed ones, for only by recognition of the truth can you assimilate its morsels into your own consciousness, and thereby take the Holy Eucharist, the manna of the presence, the bread of life that came down from heaven. I am the bread of life. You must take this mighty I am God presence of yourself as the serious part of your obligation to life. It is not enough for individuals to be devoted to themselves and to love their outer self and personality, they must recognize that in loving that alone, they shall but lose that personality and shall not find the real reality of themselves at all. But by losing themselves in their God identity, they shall, as the Christ declared, find themselves again, and with it find their blessed freedom. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, I have pursued freedom across the vast earth itself. I have moved from continent to continent. I have moved among various individuals, some who were selfish and greedy and sought me that they might find how to make gold and gems to enrich themselves so that they might enrich their harems and other specific desires of their outer self. I would like to point out to you, ladies and gentlemen, that I must ask your pardon even for the use of this word, but I do it in order that I may call to your attention the fact that too many people by far have sought for the glory of the outer world, which passes away so swiftly and is gone. And yet, unless they obtain their eternal inheritance, they do not and cannot have their freedom, which comes only from God. Blessed one. What more shall I say? What more shall I do on behalf of the student body? I do not fear when I am called upon to address you by the council, for I know that I shall always express to you the good that is in my heart. But I would call your attention to the fact that as you appropriate this good and take it into your world, it shall become a part of you. And it is by becoming a part of you yourself the greatest blessings will come to you. I can pass the flame of freedom through your four lower bodies. I can infuse you with the flame of freedom. The parable of the Christ concerning the new wine in old bottles is indicative here. Unless you shall renew your hearts and minds in the great God flame, it shall escape you and pass away and not be retained. Anchor then my feeling, anchor then the flame of freedom, both in your etheric body, your memory body, through reading and rereading my words as they are made available to you, through hearing my words every opportunity vouchsafed to you, through meditating and musing upon them, throughout picturing them in your own patterned identity, and by holy prayer drawing near every day to that holy flame of God, which in reality I am and ye are. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you and bid you good evening. Come into my garden, O my children, and feel the supreme peace that is made manifest as your hearts attune the radiance of the angels, and as you sense the peace which God pours forth through every floral offering, through the pines, whether still or blown by gentle breeze. I am inviting you, lady mothers and ladies, gentlemen and men of destiny, to take your place in the ranks of the brave who could come apart from the world and in communion with the powers of heaven feel the glory of God and draw from that glory sustaining strength for every moment when that strength was the requirement in order to have the staunchness of heart to brave the inequities and the trials of life. Some have thought of me as a mother of sorrows, and one also acquainted with grief. It is true that I have witnessed over the centuries, and during the brief span, comparatively speaking, of my embodiment as Mary, the mother of Jesus, a great deal of the sorrow and the sadness that seems to be the current lot of mankind. But I have seen far beyond all the appearances of sorrow the nobility and the grandeur that pierces the veil of every tomorrow and exalts both womanhood and manhood into such glory as written upon the archives of heaven is illustrious light, freedom, manifestation of God's presence, and the protection of the grand idea of spiritual nobility as it is enshrined within the human heart. To witness your beloved Son ascend a mount of stone, and to see him stripped by men of honor, might bring anguish to many. But to witness his resurrection a few days thereafter, and to see him rise victorious out of the shroud of human hopelessness into the victory of immortality and life, was glory enough to count the stain of the past moments as nothing. Some have wondered at the strength God has given to me, and I say to all, strength was woven from those moments of seeming defeat far more than those moments of seeming victory. For there is a victory of seeming which is not victory at all until by comparison and contrast you are able to draw from the cup of life and the dregs of gall and bitterness the sweetness of overcoming, not as though all were the sweetened wafer in the mouth and belly, but as that which is at times sweet as honey in the mouth and as bitter as gall in the belly of consummation. Brave men and women are needed, not only for yesterday, but for the problems and purposes of this day. It is not enough that noble men of spiritual attainment have graced this earth as flowers in God's garden, but it is essential that today men and women shall lay themselves upon life's altar, consecrated to the great supreme ideals of my beloved Son and the beloved Son of God. He was all of that from his earliest infancy, and I knew the moment I clasped him to my heart that he was the fullness of all which God hoped for in men. And I perceived from his first footsteps of grace that would lead him above the low places of life to the place of attainment, the mount of the ascension victory. I saw in his footsteps from the very beginning the mighty, unwavering dedication to his Father's purpose. Joseph and I did not feel ever as though he belonged to us alone, and it was easier thus to give him to the world and to God, for we knew with the very beginning of his mission that he did not belong to us alone, but to the world. And when he spake unto me and unto his Father, saying, Wist ye not that I must be about my Father's business? It was a secret sign unto us, which is not recorded in the archives of men, that with that utterance he was dedicated to the very commencement of his mission. As I stand in the atmosphere of this room, I am compelled to request of you a deepening dedication, a deepening consecration, a deepening love. I am compelled to ask of you by the great law a renewal of every sacred covenant you have ever made with God, the remembrance of the former things. Men and women of today, you have put away God and replaced him with toys, with baubles, with trinkets, with ephemeral intrinsics, you have failed to recognize that your life is a mission dedicated to God, to the manifestation of purity, to the manifestation of virtue, to the understanding of the cosmic problem. How narrow, how very, very narrow are the measurements of men. Scarcely 1 cubit. And the temple of God stands so exalted before men's eyes. If they would only recognize and ponder more upon the things that are eternal, the spires of spiritual desire would be builded higher and higher, and the cycles of attainment would equal the spires of aspiration, until by inward communion with our octave, such wonderful perfection would manifest upon the screen of life as to make many sons and daughters of God aware of their stature. Not a stature of ignorance, but a stature most precious of Christ's radiance. You have heard it said, gentle ladies and men, by some, "Oh, I am a bundle of nerves." Oh, precious ones, could you but consecrate your nervous system to the heart of your presence and feel the mighty pulsating flame of life as it flows over the wire conductors of your nervous system, as electricity flows through the wires that supply your lights. If you would recognize the peace-commanding presence of God in your world, the power of your victory, the gratitude you ought to feel for the manifold blessings conveyed to you by the hour and by the moment, I think there would be less time for useless preoccupation, usurpations of your energy, destructivity, and shame. A consecrated life, when left undisturbed by human pondering upon the altar of dedication, can always revert to the great God presence of life that stands by the altar. And in the hour of trial, say, "O God, I have committed myself unto thee. Take me, use me, do with me what thou wilt, for I am thine." But those who, as Ananias and Sapphira, say to men, "I am dedicated to God," in words while in effect, upon the first breath of trial, reneging upon their promises and dedication. I ask you, what hopelessness is born of these, who, lacking spiritual integrity, tend to slough off the blame upon another life stream and refuse to bear their own burdens or the burdens of another. This was not so, my son. It is not so of any son or daughter of heaven consecrated in truth to the upholding of the holy ideals of this moment. Your beloved Saint Germain, in his momentous dedication to the heart of God, when taking his supreme initiation to be the God of freedom to the planetary body, reaffirmed the words of the descending Christ, "Lo, I am come to do thy will, O God." And in his dedication, he offered to stay a time and a time and a half a time longer than was necessary, if it would assist some recalcitrant life stream to find their way home. And by the inversion of his great dedication, going back a time and a half a time, it came to pass the valley of his dedication became a mountain of purity and wonder. And heaven bestowed upon your Saint Germain a crown of freedom, which is so noble, so wondrous, so beautiful. As I stand here now, I am aware of the fact that men have pondered as to whether he was, in reality, the Father of beloved Jesus. I tell you, in retrospect now, and I tell you, in retrospect, as of then, I should never have shunned his companionship, for he was always understanding, patient, magnificent, and divine. He was a true consort, worthy on earth to be the Father of Jesus. This is the great Columbia, the gem of the ocean, of God freedom to the earth. In memory of your Saint Germain and of the son that he assisted to rear, your beloved ascended Master Jesus and mine, I say, ladies and gentlemen, never forget, not only on Columbus Day observed by men, but on every day observed by God in his constant faithfulness to give and to bequeath to you the protection of the angelic host, the bounties of life, and the great cosmic care of heaven. Forget not his mercies every day. Forget not our desire to commune with you. Forget not our intercession on your behalf. Forget not
the mighty power we generate, and how we stand at times with drawn swords of light to protect you against those who by their depredations would destroy all that you hold dear and near. I am come this afternoon to summon from your hearts a dedication to God's supreme allegiance. Womanhood, nobility, manhood, supreme authority, the scepter of unalterable devotion, consecration, and love. All that you give would never balance that which has been given. All that you give would be but a drop in a cup as balanced against an ocean of grace. God's grace is sufficient for thee. It is the power of light, the patience of an angel, can be developed in you, and it can be done by a gentle entering into the Son of God, the radiance that is within you. As you gaze outwardly from the temple of being, looking upon one another, ponder the mighty flame of life, so radiant within thyself. Ponder our identification, your identification with the angels and with God. Ponder the peace of my garden, O beloved ones. The gardens of earth are places of refuge. Men fly to be apart from the vicissitudes of life. They seek for peace and quietness there. My Son in Gethsemane sought for peace of soul, and that he might drink of the cup to the very bottom of its bitter dregs, with nobility, with success. For mankind, as a great example, as a victor and conqueror of death, and that men's hopes might be renewed. Heroes are needed today, spiritual heroes. You cannot give, O blessed ones, that which you do not have, but you can give whatever portion of life that you have externalized. This is all we ask. We do not ask that you become a Christ and then begin to give. We ask that you recognize that you are you, and that you begin with yourself as you are. That one talent of grace you give, when used in the service of the Most High, can be added to and added to and added to, until you find yourself surrounded with a multitude of wondrous talents, all generated and regenerated in the service of the light and for the healing of mankind's wounds. The crown of thorns was plaited from the very vine that bore the precious rose. Remember this. You may prick yourselves or others upon the thorns, or blunt them and convey to the hands of men the roses of your healing love, the perfume of your wondrous, sincere attention. This is all we do. This is the childlike, wonder of the angels. O Raphael, my adorable consort, pour forth thy healing rays upon these sons and daughters of men, and let them feel thy wonderful all-enfolding radiance, the glow ray of our perfect union in the light. I too am thankful. I thank you, and I bid you good afternoon. May the radiance of 1,000 hills illumine thy soul, O beloved children of the Most High God. I am come this night to bring to you sweet memories of your own eternal presence, your being, the heart of your identity, and the glory of the higher octaves of light. My retreat, as you know, is located in the desert regions in Arizona, and is beauteous and wondrous to behold, as are all etheric retreats. But I would like to call to your attention, beloved ones, the glory of elemental life even in the desert regions of the earth. The elementals are preparing there the matrix of a civilization yet unborn upon the planetary body, and there is a reason why these so-called waste places of the earth are kept as they are, relatively free from human effluvia and from the dust of the road of man's current expressions of life. In those places, the beauteous communion of the elementals goes on. Some of you are familiar with the flurries of dust rising in circular form and sweeping across the desert area. You are aware, but you may not know the cause behind it all. For there is accompanying that in many cases the release of elemental life's blessing upon the earth itself, whirling in a wondrous motion to convey the blessings of life to the planetary body. I have come to you this night bearing a charge of light and the radiance of light from on high, to bring to you a greater awareness of the Christ presence of light within your being. I knew Jesus so very, very well, and your hearts that are attuned to his thoughts quite frequently will appreciate the great love
which I bore for him then, and bear for him eternally. Some of you may have contemplated the reason why I was so close to him. I would like to tell you a little about it this evening. My closeness to him was because that I saw within him the great God flame of life, and I desired to feel its warmth flooding through my own being. I often lay my head upon his shoulder and very close to his heart, that it might come to pass that this flame from his heart might flow through my being. Some of you will recall the words of the Master who touched me, for he was always aware of the release of his energy when it flowed forth to perform healings and other services to life. He did not utter this when I rested my head upon his shoulder, although he was always aware of the great release of energy which flowed from him into my world. I am eternally grateful, with a heart full of immortal gratitude, for this wonder of his love which so mightily assisted me to my own ascension in the light. Proximity to holy men is invaluable, for it enables mankind to assimilate some of their spiritual momentum, and it is so much better, beloved ones, to sit in imitation of a Christ than to sit in imitation of a human ego filled with all its frustrations and doubts and fears. The world today is languishing in a never land, a spirit of unreality which was not present in the beloved Christ. I would like to call your attention to one wondrous thought. I never knew anyone who possessed so much a sense of reality. His sense was so crystal clear that he conveyed to men the knowledge of the Father. And you must understand, beloved ones, that you are ever so frequently absent from God and present with the world. And the reason why this is so is because the world seems real to you and God seems unreal. The Master Jesus conveyed to me the great consciousness of immortal love, and by proximity to his heart I assimilated an awareness of how that God was also near to me and dear to me, and I sensed God's love as flowing to me from my own divine identity. It was no longer a thing apart, an unknown condition. There no longer abode in my thoughts doubt or fear. In Jesus, I became aware of the God within myself. I convey to you this night my thoughts concerning those priceless moments we spent together. Moments on the Sea of Galilee. Moments when I would gaze at him as he walked ahead of me and see his blessed feet pressing themselves naked into the sand. You today who wear shoes are perhaps not aware that the Master frequently did not. There were times that he wore a different type of sandal than is worn today, but he sometimes preferred to feel the proximity to the currents of life that flowed from the heart of Mother Earth. But as I gazed at him walking ahead of me and witnessed the wind as it moved his precious robe, fluttering around him as though it would reach out to engulf the world, my thoughts were exalted toward the clouds so white and fleecy, toward the blue sky, and away from the thoughts of Caesar. My heart turned then from the tyranny of the Roman legions, from the political scene, and from all of the oppressions of taxation which we bore. And I lifted my consciousness as though by the hem of his precious garment into the heavens to gaze at reality. How men today deprive themselves of hope by harboring doubts of God's presence is a great pity for themselves. Discipleship, to be devoted to God, to desire to be his disciple, is to rise above the idea of being apprenticed unto men. For today there are wondrous teachers upon this planetary body of the arts and sciences, and men do not hesitate to apprentice themselves unto thee. Of old, some of you in the musical realm have been pupils of Palestrina. Do you realize then, precious ones, what it means to be apprenticed unto God, to emulate him, to express his qualities? This discipleship is no ordinary event. When it comes to you individually, you must know it, because you have opened your heart to it. You have wished for it. You have longed for it. It is the fulfillment of a hidden hunger of your being. To be saturated with human love, this is understandable, but how fickle is human love, beloved ones, whereas the love of God is so constant. In the great divine constancy of the great lover of humanity and of life, God expresses through the great Christ presence of every man. How delighted we were to learn from beloved Jesus and to hear from his own lips the mystery of the Christ presence when he taught us that not only did he possess that presence, but that we did. Our joy knew no bounds, for we realized that God had no favored son. You know, beloved ones, it was my mother's wish that I be seated on the right hand of God. And in those days, as in the present day, position and place seems to mean so much to mankind, and yet so few are willing to drink of the cup of life that such a position would require. I absorbed from beloved Jesus
in addition to a feeling of love, the temper of a steel blade dedicated to truth. My being became wholly devoted not only to the love of Christ, but to the need to defend this radiance against those who would soil it, not with outer weapons of warfare, but with inner spiritual weapons of light's protection. I perceive the need to hold my communion with God inviolate against all the inrush which was manifest in the darkening skies over Golgotha's hill. I was there. I beheld him lifted up, and they gazed at him as upon a thief. But they knew not that he came unto the night, that he might bring a light to all humanity. Those of us who were taught from his own precious lips were admonished so often to recognize that so long as we did not ascend into the fullness of that presence, we should serve in every way to bring about the kingdom of God into the hearts of men. And we were also told that after our ascension, we could, if we would, volunteer to serve this planetary body and the Christ spirit of the earth in bringing freedom to mankind from that humanly imposed bondage which, like a chain, holds the planetary body until that planetary body, occasionally galled as it were by the restraint imposed upon it by men, shakes itself free for a moment, and the very earth shakes and trembles, desiring to be free from the imposition of human discord. This too is divine love. It is love in action, longing to bring to mankind their freedom. I am so aware that many of you have desires that are centered in God, but there lingers in the back of your consciousness human desires, so understandable, but so completely unnecessary when you gaze upon the presence of God and his wondrous design for you. At that moment when you are able to cry as we did, I see, O God, beholding the purity of your own being, you will find a willingness within yourself to commit all of your desires into the keeping of God's hand. And then you will no longer be concerned about them, as to whether or not they shall manifest in your world. And then, blessed ones, just when you least expect it, the grace of God will manifest in you. The priceless gifts of the Father, not only spiritual gifts, but even material needs and desires, because the Father knoweth your needs. And when your own thought of doubt and lack is removed, the doorway is open for the Father to give to you. This is why the Christ taught us to seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and then all these things should be added unto us. Beloved ones, I want so much tonight to draw you very close into my embrace, because I want to tell you that the doorway to all your good lies in the heart of your divine presence. You but frustrate yourself and deny yourself all good when you turn away and seek in the outer world of conditions, places, and things for your freedom. For your freedom is always in the great flame of life that pulsates within you, that transforms you and has the power to transform you. The great reality of God is blazing, but regardless of how glaring it might seem to mankind's consciousness, the blind are unable to see the glory of God. The Christ came to take away the scales from men's eyes, that they might behold not the iniquities of men, but the perfection and purity of God. I want to speak of consciousness. I want to give you an awareness of your own consciousness. Your consciousness is God. He has given to you his own consciousness. It is a mighty river depicted in the Revelations, which I brought forth on Patmos. It is depicted as a great river flowing before the throne of God. The throne of God is your own true identity, and the great river that flows crystal clear before it is the great stream of consciousness, which is as much yours as it is mine. This consciousness which I have tonight of the immortal presence of life, gazing from the inner levels, is yours tonight without and within. Without because you are embodied here, but within because you are consecrated there to the great holy purpose which he holds in his own heart, the heart of your own mighty I am God presence, the heart of your Christ self, this beauteous reality, which more wondrous than a rose, more sweet than a lily or hyacinth, is the face of the living Christ, overlaid upon your own blessed features, upon your physical, mental, emotional, and etheric bodies. Your memory retains as much as my own, speaking at inner levels, the beauty of the Christ. For each of you have beheld him before you ever drew a breath. You were not permitted, beloved ones, to draw a breath until you had gazed at inner levels upon the great loving face of your spiritual Christ matrix, the Son of God. The radiance of God was witnessed by each of you. And though you did not walk beside Galilee, and did not sit in the boat with Jesus, does not mean that you are to be denied the blessing of being a son of God. That which you, blessed ones, beheld at inner levels before you first drew mortal form is the goal, the matrix, the pattern of love for you, the blueprint of life, the consecrated ideal, not the idol of human idolatry, which in the glorification of human concepts strips itself from its divine reality and takes unto itself the unreality of human consciousness, but the great supreme spiritual power of love. How shall I make you aware, O beloved children here and throughout the planetary body, of the real meaning of God's consciousness? It is life, it is light, and it is love. But it is your life, it is your light, and it is your love as much as mine. You possess the right in the eyes of God and in the great eye of God, the power of your own I am presence, to lay your head upon the shoulder of your own Christ presence tonight and every day of your life, and to draw forth from the great God flame which surrounds the force field of your being the power of that love. And today, when the storms of life and trials assail the fortress of your being, you are able to do as the Christ did. You may, if you choose, fall asleep, that is, in the outer, put the outer human self to sleep in the gentleness of God's arms, committing yourself before your eyes close to his keeping, forgiving all who you feel may have wronged you, and consecrating yourself to his precious arms of love. Then, with the stilling of the human thoughts and feelings, the power of love can touch your being and consecrate you anew by the power of that great presence of life which declared, I am the first and the last. Know ye not, O beloved brethren, the meaning of that? I am the first man, the first immortal imaging of God, and the last, and all from first to last are perfect, even as the Father is perfect in heaven. It is an illusion, a dream of unreality, which men have partaken of, that has kept them from a state of awareness of their own spiritual reality. They must awaken from this dream, and they must witness the living reality of the Christ in this 20th century. For God today is the same as he was then, and so shall he ever be. It is your own stream of thought, precious ones, that must merge itself and dissolve itself, and all muddied concepts, all shadowed concepts, in the great stream of purity and light that is God, until the eternal sound of his loving voice is as dear to your hearts as your dearest beloved friend upon this planetary body. Oh, precious ones, how you long sometimes for a true friend. You have the truest friend in the Christ presence of your being. Beloved, Jesus confided to us ever so frequently how that he was the archetype for mankind at that particular time, to bring to them an awareness of their own spiritual potential. In the great unfolding drama which he lived was the story of all revealed. When he visited Dorcas, when he raised the widow's son at Nain. These are experiences that could have come to any of you, that may yet come to you. You need not be denied any good thing, for the quickening of your consciousness is a gift of God. Some of you have been taught in the past to look for the second coming of the Christ. The pure in heart shall see God. Behold, every eye shall see him, and they also which pierced him. For many men have crucified the Christ of their own being. But when they purify their consciousness by contacting the great crystal stream of purity, that is the consciousness of God, and permitting it entree into their worlds, mankind find their freedom. The great stream of light that flows into their hearts buoys them up, and the purifying action of the waters removes the elements of the earth from their identity, exalting them by the power of the transmuting flames, and raises them into the air, caught up into the Christ consciousness, and so shall they forever be with the Lord Christ. The meaning of this ought to be so clear to the theologians of this day, and yet so skillfully has the doctrinal tenets of mankind been woven that it is more like a spider's web than an assistance or a shepherd's crook. I come then with a message of pure spiritual love to invoke within your hearts the awareness of God and of Christ, the awareness of all those dedicated to his purposes, and they are many. Jesus spoke to us concerning the many mansions of God, and he sometimes at night upon the hillsides of Judea would lift his right hand to the stars, and while he used different names than those familiar to your astronomers to describe these various stars and constellations, our hearts were stirred as he called them homes of light. He did not feel that they were empty, whirling nebulae of light, but he knew that they were intelligently peopled, and he knew that in the mansions of God were his friends. He told us much that I am not permitted to reveal in words to you, as much as I should like to do. But I am permitted to reveal to you that which is necessary for mankind to know now and for some time to come. But there is no limit on my love and the love of God. My love enfolds you all. My love enfolds the planetary body. My love enfolds the Christ. My love enfolds the light. May the light enfold you all in the crystal clear awareness that that blessing you call consciousness is a small portion of the crystal shining mind of God, fragmented into myriad pieces, that all might one day come together again before the throne of his presence, yours and mine. Joy to the world, the Lord has come. Let earth receive him now. From our retreat in Arizona, I call to the elemental powers of light to sweep across the planetary body and convey the message of Christ's accomplishment to mankind. Let every fainting shepherd be revived. Those who would be bishops to the children of men, to guard them, to seek for that which is lost, to seek to save, to heal, to elevate, to ennoble, to assist the great divine hierarchy of light in fashioning objects of spiritual beauty out of lumps of clay, until the Christ be glorified in all, and they may say of you, as I say of him, I knew him, I saw his glory, I witnessed his perfection. You come from one God, one pattern, one life, one light. What think ye then wrought the change now manifesting? What think ye then shall wrought the change that shall transform ye into that which he is? It is the self-same power that ascended me into the light from Patmos and sustains me in my immortal knowing of God's wondrous love, unfolding diorama after diorama of beauty before my eyes, and these no mirages upon the desert, but the celestial glory of eternal reality fashioned by the angelic hands, and more wondrous by far than these flowers gracing your altar, or than ever a face of man wore, even including our beloved John the Baptist, whose beauty of face and countenance was wondrous to behold. I tonight, from my retreat, ask you this: shall my message be but another voice crying in the wilderness, prepare ye the way of God, make straight his paths? Or shall it be a message of acceptance, which ye can accept and find room within the heart of your being for? The decision is made by your free will. I compel no man, but I speak of love, for from love I came, and to love's immortal bower I shall return. O Spirit of the Mahachohan, mighty power of light's comfort, breathe upon these souls, and let their physical forms glow with a sacred coal from the altars of heaven. Let the untransmuted ash of their own physical senses evaporate before the rising sun of their great God identity, until they too may be in the Spirit on this the Lord's day, to sense that heaven is real and is no myth. Elijah knew it, Daniel knew it, and faced the lions. You today shall not escape if you neglect this great salvation as near as the Christ presence of your being. He hath first loved you. Shall ye love him as he loved you. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you.
Heart friends of the ages, I am come this night, and yet with the breaking of this dawn, I knew that I should speak to you here. For here are many who have long loved me and served to keep the holy commandments of God. The gracious breaking then of this day brought to me a certain happiness which I hope to share with you, that the mighty power of your own God self may seize all recalcitrant energies in your worlds and bring you into that spirit of completeness and cosmic harmony where you can obtain entree into our octave of purity and bliss. As I speak to you tonight, it is my God determination to bring to you an awareness that although there may be gaps and intervals in our communications, in the sense that some of you have not been afforded the opportunity of hearing from me for a long time, there has been no surcease of my love or my watchful care over your endeavors and over your worlds. I admonish you then to hold a sense of celestial gratitude within your blessed hearts for the causes of heaven that have been fulfilled by the ministrations of the angelic hosts in gentle responses to your calls and decrees. The hour is at hand when a greater spirit of cosmic unity than has previously existed shall sweep across the hearts of America and the world to bring into fulfillment some greater measure of those dreams which I have held for so long and which so filled the very fiber of my being when first I long ago uttered my words of admonishment to you through beloved Godfrey. I am come then this night to bless you and to sanctify within you that Holy Spirit of grace which has perpetually kept ablaze the flame of God within your blessed hearts. Beloved ones, there is never any need whatsoever to enter into a spirit of human competition, for it is the spirit of divine love that has made possible this moment which you now share with me. A spirit of divine love which floods forth and fills the heart of those who lead you in this place and have directed you with all of the love of their being for so many years. Express then your gratitude to God for the love in all hearts which creates a perfect spirit of divine grace and understanding, fulfilling the plan of heaven that like an evergreen tree speaks of the living Christ, with spires pointing heavenward and a beauteous odor of sanctity permeating the atmosphere with the eternal pine, mankind recognize that they are pointing the way toward the ascension and the victory in the light for every man, as tall trees upon the hillsides, every life stream dedicated to our cause and the cause of immortal perfection within his own heart flame, helps to renew the eternal covenant of the ages and to fulfill his own immortal destiny, while linking himself with the blessed angelic host and those who are sent forth from the heart of God to serve the holy cause. Blessed ones, remember the words of the living Christ. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do, and let your hearts apply this blessed blessing of the Christ to all men who walk not as you do in the light. Chastise them never in your consciousness, for without the spirit of cosmic grace you would walk yet among them, a part of the mass consciousness and human effluvia. You are today then, by divine grace, standing in that spiritual echelon which you presently inhabit, by reason of the Spirit of grace for a great cosmic purpose, the installation of grace upon the planet Earth in the hearts of men, and the serving of the holy cause of freedom. I then urge upon you now to capture a vision of my own God mind and the mind of illumined avatars of the ages. Consider the mighty force field that exists around this building. Consider also the force field of love's protection that exists around your blessed hearts, and recognize the virtue in a multitude of such sanctuaries being dotted across the nation as though a giant salt shaker were sprinkling the savor of heaven over the earth, and dotting the countryside with holy sanctuaries, an abode for the weary traveler to rest and enter, to receive the cup of life, the cup of liquid light from on high, and to bask in the sunlight of divine purity. Your services are not in vain. Your decrees are not in vain. Your cosmic energies and the offerings which you bring, both in floral tribute and those flowers of virtue within your hearts, these all, ladies and gentlemen of divine grace, are not in vain. They are not a part of that mankind's vanity, but they are a part of the offering of service unto the great ones in the name of your own cosmic victory. Beloved ones of the light, the hour is coming when you will be able to have a greater and greater demonstration of the wonders of the ascended Master's octave made manifest for you. Not only will this be made manifest in the physical octave, it will be made manifest so that all mankind will be able to recognize for themselves the wonders of God's love. But ere that time shall come, and ere the great law will permit this, you must understand that a great deal of groundwork and foundation work must be laid across the heart of America and the world, so that from among mankind we may free many souls who are yet pining for reunion with their own God identity. These blessed souls have a vibratory action which cries unto heaven for release from the chains of bondage which now presently enclose them round about. These are the potential ascended master youth of the world, those who are bound by the chains of schism and corruption, by confusion and anguish. Blessed be the name then of the living Christ and of every potential saint who would make invocations and calls for the freeing of these individuals, as much a part of God as ye are. I say unto you then, in this cosmic moment of light's perfection, when the glories of heaven and the angelic host draw very close to your blessed hearts, let the Spirit of God and the songs, the melodies of the angelic host sink down into your feeling worlds. Open up the great continents of the air, the great continents of love and light, and let the ministrations of the cosmic angels pour down the great ladder of light into your blessed souls. Drink in then, as the buttercup drinks in the light of the morning sun, the wondrous rays of purity and perfection which we are now pouring out upon you, to comfort you, to bless you, to bring you into complete God union with your own immortal I Am presence, and to tell you that our love shall never cease for the students of this great light. I tell you, beloved ones, the power of God's name, I Am, is and remains supreme as the power of that I Am presence, which is that I am, and that ye also are. This then is the be-ness of all mankind, the great cosmic reality which abides in the temple of men's hearts, and yet they know it not with their minds. Through opening up the great spirit of consciousness of Christ's victory within the hearts of men, greater understanding will flow from the Christ-illumined mind of mankind, until through the flame of cosmic illumination, men will come to understand one another to a greater degree, and in this understanding they will recognize that differences do not exist any more than they do in the floral kingdom, where the rose grows beside the daffodil, and where all the various fruits of the earth may manifest after their kind without a spirit of competition or pain, and they breathe their fragrance into space to hallow the atmosphere. So be it then with all men. In God's holy name I Am, let the spirit of freedom flow from the root of the tree of life, pass up the trunk, and flow into the flowers, until the air is simply laden with the blessings of heavenly compassion, uniting men and destroying the lion nature of mankind, and bringing into manifestation the mighty power of the Lamb of God, who taketh away the sins, the stains, and the spots of the world by the power of Christ's virtue radiant within each life stream, and determined to bring all to their own Christ victory, the manifestation of the mighty power of light's perfection, which existed in great temples of light long ago, and that which was nourished and fed by mankind, and to the present hour exists in the etheric realm to serve the needs of mankind. Let these flames then, which have been nourished, in due time be called forth into physical manifestation, until mankind are able to have the benefit of direct visual contact with these flames, even as you behold at this moment our living messenger speaking to you our words, and flashing them forth into your consciousness by the power of our love. I tell you, ladies and gentlemen, we have not forsaken the students of truth and the students who have long served our light, and we are still reaching out into the world of form to call to our counsel all those who love the light and ought to serve it. And we are extending our hand of service to those who sit yet in the shadow of pain and anguish and have not yet understood the meaning of life. These too are a part of life, and the caravan of life will be incomplete until every son of heaven has joined his energies with ours in the cause of the resurrection flame, to pursue the virtue of his own God identity and find a clean escape from all error and bondage. I tell you, I would wish to pay some great tribute tonight to your service on behalf of the destruction of entities
within the people who are sitting in this sanctuary, for it is a most wondrous gift for an ascended being to be able to enter a place that is free from entities and relatively free from human emotions. I tell you, beloved ones, the service that mankind pay to the great light is always a service which brings about victory. And although some men may criticize the service that is performed by reason of a lack of understanding, it does not mean that we of the ascended octave do. For we praise the power of all virtue and beauty in its complete unfoldment, and recognize the needs for various individuals to exist in various activities and organizations throughout the world to promote the spirit of eternal felicity of the great white brotherhood and encourage the hearts of the many who are the children of God. This morning, as the many proceeded to leave their homes and enter their automobiles and modes of transportation in order to enter houses of worship, do you think, beloved ones, that the angelic host and the ascended masters were absent from all such services? I tell you, nay. For inasmuch as the great law permits us, we take advantage of that great law and try to minister to the needs of all mankind. But oh, how we consider the special activity of those individuals who by their decrees call forth that energy which the world needs and which we require by reason of the great law in order to release the sanctimonious and pure power of the Holy Spirit in living manifestation to change and transmute lives until the glowing coals on the altar of heaven radiate their own cosmic purity, and the dead ash of unregenerate emotion and human wickedness is purified by the great angelic host and the holy cause of freedom, I say now divine freedom, to which we are dedicated. It is true that we aspire to see political freedom for all the nations of the world, but it is also so very true that our greatest aspiration is to see living souls God-free in the light of their own mighty I Am God presence, so that the ascension in the light will become the living hope of all men. And although some may fall short of it, they shall find by reason of their struggles, which ceased in the glorious overcoming of their mighty I Am presence over the human, that although they might have failed in one embodiment to make their ascension, the great karmic board, out of its own great heart of mercy, extended to them in the next embodiment the absolute dominion and scepter of authority by reason of their previous invocation and the fulfillment of their fond hopes to join the ranks of the ascended masters and obtain their own precious freedom. May I extend to you then tonight my own hands of eternal felicity in the cause so holy. May I extend to you from out the great central sun the radiance of my presence, and may I place the invisible yet powerful cloak of violet flame upon your shoulders, that you may know its protection and glory until there is fulfilled in you that wondrous God design which is our hope. Ladies and gentlemen, children of God's wonderful light, with what words could I admonish you of the great need of mankind, of the great need for understanding, of the great need for felicity and goodwill? I say to you, look upon these floral symbols here, these yellow roses, as though they were living flames of cosmic illumination. Recognize that in the great cosmic flame of illumination, blazing so brightly in South America from the god and goddess Meru, there is a wondrous enfolding radiance which all the three Americas shall one day know. and the hour is being hastened by each erg of energy which you contribute to the cause so pure. May I bow to the light within your heart, and may I enfold you now and always in my flame of freedom. I thank you, I bless you, and I bid you good evening.